Welcome to ciplantgo, a podcast aimed at introducing people living a plant-based lifestyle in Japan. For this episode, I interviewed Nadia McKechnie, professional educational writer and voice actor, and organizer extraordinaire of Tokyo Vegan Meetup. Should you attend one of the Tokyo Vegan Meetup events, chances are you will be greeted by her warm and welcoming smile. Nadia displays some of the best hosting skills out there, making sure that newcomers feel among friends and find people to connect with. In this interview, after a quick presentation of Tokyo Vegan Meetup, we cover her path to Japan and how it shaped her career, her perception of how much Japan changed during her 30 years in the country, her way into a plant-based lifestyle, and how it worked out for her in Japanese society and within her own family, her involvement in animal rights activism, and finally go back to Tokyo Vegan Meetup before ending by one rapid-fire question. During meetups, Nadia is always very busy being an awesome host, so having the opportunity to sit down and talk with her for a little more than an hour was a real pleasure for me. I hope it will be as interesting and enjoyable to you. Without further ado, here is Nadia McKechnie. Hi Nadia, thank you very much for being my guest for this podcast.
Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, so first things first, I had Saori as a first guest and she already introduced us to what Tokyo Vegan Meetup was, and since you're the organizer of Tokyo Vegan Meetup with her, I'd like to hear your take on what is that meetup group and what you're doing, etc. in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, it's just a community meetup group which aims to promote veganism and get people to come and try veganism, basically, in a nutshell.
All right.
And support the vegan community to grow in Tokyo.
All right, cool. So I'd love to hear more about this, but now let's jump quite far back, I guess, in the past. And can you tell us more about what brought you to Japan, when that was, and basically in as much or as few details as you like tell us what was your life here in Japan?
Well, I came here about 30 years ago, actually, first of all, in the old bubble era, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I came here for two reasons mainly. One was because I was interested in Oriental medicine.
Okay.
I'd been studying acupuncture and shiatsu and Oriental diagnosis and stuff.
Cool.
And the other reason was because a good friend of mine was living here and they invited me to come.
All right.
So I was interested in Japan and the Oriental medicine stuff, and my friend was already here and invited me. So that's basically what brought me here.
Oh, really?
I was not planning to stay more than about 3 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
3
really
months.
loved living in London, so I didn't really...
Yeah, okay. You're originally from London?
Yeah, I'm from London.
Okay. Just a bit an aparté here. I actually did, a long time ago, I did 3 years of evening classes of shiatsu myself.
Oh, did you?
So I studied all the keraku and stuff like that. I forgot pretty much everything, but yeah, you do, right? But yeah, I found it pretty interesting as well. And so you came here first with maybe a tourist visa, something like that, if it was 3 months?
Yeah, I was planning just to stay here for a few months.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I got study visas and whatever.
I see.
Yeah,
all
then
right.
I got married, so...
Oh,
yeah.
all right. All right, so yeah, you married Japanese.
I did, yes.
I think, yeah.
Yes,
All
after
right.
being here 5 years.
Okay. And you're having a family here, right?
Yeah. I've got she's almost 17.
All right, cool. And so what, after studying for a while here, what's kind of your professional path in Japan?
What I've been doing?
Yeah.
Well, I came here just planning to stay for a few months and do some studying.
Okay.
And then what happened was, of course, I began teaching English.
Okay.
And then also doing things like modeling and stuff, all the bubble era kind of, just every foreigner would do kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then out of that, I ended up going for an audition for an NHK radio show, Kiso Ego, about 20-something years ago. And then I got a part on the Kiso Ego program, doing radio NHK.
Okay. Yeah.
Then I began writing, because halfway through the program, the sensei in charge asked me to start writing stuff.
All right.
And so then I began writing eikaiwa books. So basically, from just being here and hanging around and doing all the same things all the other foreigners do, and of course studying a little bit of shiatsu. I then ended up somehow like getting into voice acting.
Okay.
And also writing English conversation books and materials. So my career has basically been the last 25 years writing English conversation books and materials and doing narration. Which I absolutely love.
That's great.
I love those two things so much.
Yeah, I mean, to do it that long, you have to have
it. It's so fun.
Okay,
yeah, I love my job.
Was it something that you ever considered even, or like
no,
were aware of before coming here?
No, I wasn't aware you could do that. So, you know, I liked acting and stuff, but I didn't particularly like acting on camera so much. But I just love voice acting and I love writing. So I always liked writing things, but somehow I ended up like doing this great job, and I was like, oh, it's so great.
Yeah, and so you're doing that as
I gave up Oriental medicine completely.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a long time, and it's interesting, but you really have to be committed to it, right?
I wasn't committed enough. And I love all the ideas, I love Oriental medicine, and I love all the philosophy, but it wasn't really for me.
I see.
I think some people, you have to be really talented to do that.
Oh, is that so?
I think you have to have some kind of, natural talent for the healing. And
maybe,
I have that.
Okay. And so right now, I think you're freelance, right?
Yeah, I work
So
freelance.
you're like doing several like contracts depending on the opportunities, etc.
Well, I just have like some regular jobs. I work for a bunch of like regular clients with writing as well. And I also teach a course at Gakushuin Long Life Learning Center, Sakura Academy.
I see.
I teach a British English course on Saturdays and stuff. So it's kind of fun.
And before we segue into everything related to diet, and it's probably going to be the main part of the podcast here, but I used to study Japanese. I was doing Japanese studies in a previous life, let's say, and so I studied a lot about what was Japan like in the past, but I studied it, right? And in the past, obviously, in the long past, but also like in the recent past. And for me, when I hear people, foreigners especially, they tell me they've been here like 15, 20 or plus years, I'm like, I'm very curious. Like, for example, if you could go back 30 years, like some differences would be like very obvious, right? And I'm not talking technology, but maybe like you were talking about the bubble. Like I have a friend who told me that you would go to Ginza or Roppongi, you would see way more luxury display of luxury items, etc. than nowadays. And that's just one of the differences. Are you like kind of, for someone who experienced that, but like gradually, do you feel like it's very different now than it was in the past, or do you just feel like it's a bit same-ish, but you just have like smartphones and stuff like that?
I think it just, things change slowly, so you're not really aware of a big change.
Okay.
Looking back, I think a lot of it's to do with technology anyway, and things like fast fashion.
Yeah.
When I first came here, I'm not sure if they're actually always good changes, to be honest.
Yeah, true.
When I first came here, you could only buy like really, really cheap supermarket clothes.
I see.
Or you had to buy like designer things from department stores.
Yeah.
So I think we were always complaining about you couldn't buy affordable homeware goods.
All right.
And and people had a bit more money to spend, I think.
Yeah. That's one thing I heard.
They didn't live any better. I think people basically lived in the same kind of houses. They just had a bit more disposable income to buy like designer clothes and bags. Yeah. But apart from that, I don't really think it's so different.
Maybe there was less like...
There are more poor people visible
right now, right? Yeah, like more like freeters and stuff like that. People who are having like part-time jobs just to...
It was the big freeter revolution.
Yeah.
I think people were moving away from that job for life kind of culture.
Philosophy,
and thinking that wasn't a good thing.
That's where the name comes from, right? Freeter, like free arbiters, free worker, and then it was first a choice, and now and for the past maybe 20 years, it's been more and more the only option for a lot of people who even
Which is not good.
Yeah, no, it's not. You can't make plans.
Yeah.
It's like 3 month or less like contracts that are like you never know if it's going to be renewed. You can't make plans, so it's definitely related to the drop in birth rate.
It's a super interesting subject because I remember the times when everyone was saying, the salary man and it's horrible, and the young people were saying, I don't want to be like that. And now it's got to the stage, as you said before, where people haven't got a choice.
Yeah.
A lot of people would like to have a job for life and be salaried, but it's a whole kind of global phenomena where basically
totally. It's not only here, right?
workers are disposable and, you know,
but
they
here
get
is
treated
very,
really badly.
It's So even like couples working full-time freeter jobs, they can't save enough money to get kids because education is not cheap, and if you can't really make plans, and like it's linked to a kind of life where it's very, you can't look farther than the next 3 months or whatever.
Exactly.
And this is like terribly stressful. And I mean, sure, there are places in the world that are way worse off, but it's not a way to make a generation build wealth and like be able to help society as a whole, right? So it's definitely a very complicated topic. I don't have much knowledge in the details, so I can't really talk about it more than this, but I was, if you're telling me that you see more poor people nowadays than maybe like just homeless people, right? We see some of them where in the past I heard you wouldn't see any.
Well, I was talking to a friend who's involved with the Big Issue and some homeless charities recently, and he was saying that recently a new thing is that we're seeing young homeless people.
Yeah.
In the past, it was really the traditional kind of model of like older guys, especially, who become unable to work, and there basically isn't any social welfare system here. There's millions of like working poor people and poor children, and now we're seeing young people too. A lot of whom have mental health issues as well, who are just literally falling through. I mean, I feel really sad because Japan has been a rich country for so long, but we really don't have a welfare system set up for this modern age.
I see.
So, of course, there are lots of worrying things, but I don't know if that was always the case, but it was more hidden. It's really
it was definitely less prevalent.
You know, like 20, 30 years ago, a lot of people still lived in like horrible old apartments with no like bathrooms. And things like that too. So, you know, I don't know how different it is, to be honest, but there have been a lot of social changes. Yeah,
definitely. All right, and through all that, you were, let's say, fortunate enough to have a good living, which is very good. And so somewhere along the line, you questioned your diet. When did that start? How did that start? Who was around you? What kind of environment were you in? How can you go back in time and like, can you find something that kind of triggered?
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, I became vegetarian before I came to Japan.
Oh, okay.
So I was vegetarian. I kind of went vegetarian in the big wave in Britain.
Oh, right.
In the late 80s.
Okay.
There was a huge, like a massive wave. I think there was a documentary on TV. And then suddenly, overnight, everybody was vegetarian. And literally in London, there were vegetarian options in everywhere suddenly.
All right.
And in supermarkets, they had vegetarian options suddenly, like before I came to Japan in like 89.
All right.
So I came here, and also at that point, I was really interested in animal rights. And I was just really, I joined everything. When I went vegetarian, I joined all the groups.
Okay.
You know, like League Against Cruel Sports,
I see.
Lynx, which was an anti-fur thing. I had all the T-shirts, you know.
All right.
And I was actually reading lots of books like Peter Singer. Like about speciesism and the moral status of animals. And I was kind of thinking about if I wanted to go to college at some point and study something to do with speciesism.
Oh, really?
Before I came here.
Yeah.
And then I came here and I brought my books with me. I brought like the moral status of animals.
Okay.
Actually in my suitcase.
All right.
With me to Japan and lots of other books. But in those days it was mostly... in those days the conversation was mostly about like meat.
Yeah.
And also about vivisection.
All right.
We didn't have dairy and eggs hadn't really come into it. And I'd actually met like one vegan. I think I'd met one vegan before I came to Japan.
All right.
And I was thinking, oh my God, that sounds really cool. And I got rid of my leather boots and stuff. So I was wearing like non-leather, but I was still a vegetarian. I was still it was still like 30 years ago. So but vegan seemed like fruitarian or something.
Something like that.
Breatharian now. It didn't seem like a viable like diet. So I came to Japan, and in those days we had nothing. We had no like Google translation and no apps. So I was like struggling, you know, to get anything. I was just basically we couldn't even buy like cheese, like in the supermarket, only sliced cheese. I was eating cheese. And so it was a little bit of a struggle to I stayed vegetarian.
Okay.
I think I got much looser. Like I remember I was eating ramen, like miso ramen for about a year before finding out it was made with pork.
Okay.
So I was like, oh my God, I just order my like chashu nuki, without like pork on top. And I thought I was doing a great job. And I used to go to Loft as well. They used to sell imported miso soup that was vegan.
I see. Oh, really?
Yes, I used to buy things from Loft, like a pack, like we buy vegan goods now. They were like healthy vegetarian things. It seems like really bizarre looking back, how. And we had Natural House. I used to go there and buy vitamin tablets. Natural House was there, and Shimokizawa.
Okay. Can I just ask you one question here? You read, is it Animal Liberation you read from Peter Singer?
I think it was The Moral Status of Animals or something.
You wrote that as well?
I can't remember. He wrote lots of books.
Yeah,
but
because I was going to ask if you had read Animal Liberation before coming here. And although veganism was certainly, I can imagine, it was like seen as not really viable.
It wasn't mentioned. The word vegan wasn't mentioned.
It might not be mentioned
not in the book I read anyway.
Okay, yeah, because in Animal Liberation, he might not mention it, although I only read the last edition, right? So it had been updated since the book from the 70s, but he's definitely talking about dairy and eggs in the book.
I've read nothing about dairy and eggs.
Okay, all right, I see. So it's probably not that book.
About free range.
Yeah.
I don't know which books I was reading, but all the groups I belonged to, I think I joined the Vegetarian Society. I didn't even know about the Vegan Society.
Yeah.
And I joined all these groups and stuff like that. And it just really was all the groups were vegetarian.
Okay.
Like, all the Antifa. It wasn't really, people weren't even vegetarian, a lot of them. But it was really a weird time because I used to go to like parties and have arguments, and
really?
People were always fighting with me, saying, "Well, you've got leather shoes on," and it was always like trying to defend my position in those days. But I think we hadn't evolved to vegan yet. Vegan wasn't yet like a viable, ordinary solution.
Okay.
It wasn't. The conversation was not vegan at all. I think I maybe knew the word vaguely, but it seemed like something really undoable. But I do think if I had stayed in Britain at that point and carried on the kind of vein I was going in, I probably would have been vegan 30 years ago. Yeah. And the minute I came here, I felt very frustrated all the time.
I can imagine,
because I couldn't I think I got involved with Java at one point. Japan Anti-Vivisection Association.
Oh, okay. All right.
My husband and I went to help them on a couple of things.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
About panel exhibition.
I see.
But I couldn't speak that good Japanese, and all they seemed to need was translation.
I see.
I wasn't sure how I could help, and then I got busy with work.
Yeah. Okay. So the vegan you met was not in Japan, right? So you met that person, so you were kind of aware of veganism.
One person.
When you arrived here, but then you struggled with the state of things in Japan, which even nowadays is not as comfortable for vegetarian vegans than it is in a lot of Western countries. And for several years there, you were a vegetarian. In Japan, does that mean that, for example, you were, never having any fish either? So sushi and the like.
Well, I've never eaten sushi. I mean, I've got it over the years. I did go through a phase of being a bit looser.
Okay.
Like, for example, occasionally I'd have onigiri with some kind of fish in it. There was nothing else.
Yeah.
And things like, I wouldn't worry about things like the katsuodashi miso soup.
Yeah. So
there was no internet, there was no information unless you seeked it out, And lots of my friends were actually vegetarian. And my husband went vegetarian on our first date.
Oh,
and
really?
And my daughter was raised vegetarian until we went vegan, when we all went vegan, my family.
Oh, that's awesome.
So she's never eaten meat ever.
All right.
But of course, we've always been a bit more loose about things like stocks.
Stocks fish stock and etc. is hard to.
It wasn't that difficult because basically, I was looking back on it. Basically, I just ate Italian and Indian.
Oh, okay.
And izakaya, I would have something like, fried potatoes. Because I wasn't so fussy about stock or something. I would have like soba. I wouldn't worry too much about dashi. So I think vegetarian in those days, at least in Japan, meant like just sort of kind of loose vegetarian.
I see.
We didn't worry about rennet cheese. We didn't worry so much about battery eggs. I think the kind of climate was
you're avoiding the meat, you're avoiding the pieces of fish, and then there you go.
As much as you can. And
I mean, it's already very good, right?
Which was like, I kind of felt it was a bit weird, but that seemed to be like the only way to kind of manage to live at that point.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean,
looking
even
back, it seems weird now, die-hard vegan meat.
True. But even nowadays, I think for people who have some amount of interest in animal welfare, but feel challenged by the expectations of a vegan diet, being vegetarian is, and not avoiding fish stock, for example, and those kind of things, not making your life harder for the amount of time needed to really get comfortable and to like kind of feel it's normal, and then from there on, maybe you'll have the strength, to make a step further, and like for it to be incremental, I think is very important. Like, for example, I interviewed Saori, and she explained how she was vegetarian for a while before being vegan, etc. And it's actually when you start to be vegan and you hang on to it for a certain amount of time, especially if you're in an environment you have people that are vegan as well, it makes things that are a bit challenging at first more and more the norm, and then you're just used to it, right?
Definitely.
Yeah,
I really like that. Vegan Outreach have that kind of philosophy. The group in America that goes to universities. They say, start off by taking out identifiable animal products.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then work up from there. Where people at different places at different times in their lives.
Exactly.
It all does make a huge difference.
Definitely.
And then you can work up from there. I think it's great. I'm not complaining. We're not living in a vegan world, so I'm not going to slam anyone or criticize anybody for not being vegan enough.
Yeah.
I mean, vegan is not an end goal. It's a lifestyle. It's a philosophy. It's a work in progress. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So we all create the world together by our consumer choices.
Exactly, yeah.
And we have to start somewhere.
So, no, true. I mean, I think no one in, for example, my closest people, like my family, is vegan, but they're all pretty open-minded about it. Some of them are like more convinced about the moral arguments. The health arguments are definitely helping a lot as well, especially with my father. He's more interested in that than the rest in his daily life. And I mean, whatever works, right? I'm personally very, very interested in the welfare of animals.
Me too.
And so, so for me, I tend to be pretty on or off kind of guy. So if I do it, I do it. And I'm very black and white there. So I had a hard time in the first few months of my vegan journey to not be aggressive when talking about it, being emotional. But now I think I'm starting to be able to manage things with more diplomacy, let's say.
No, I mean, having been a vegetarian for many years and being one of those people who had to argue with people like 30 years ago, you'd get into a fight. If you mentioned anything to do with vegetarianism, you would literally get into a fight at parties with people. Everybody would literally attack you personally. But I found that one lovely thing about deciding to be vegan, which I did about maybe, goodness, how many years ago?
Yeah, how many years ago?
About 6 years ago,
okay,
maybe?
Yeah.
I decided that it would just be easier to be vegan than vegetarian.
So it was about like 24 years of vegetarianism in Tokyo with periods of time where you were more or less strict about it?
We're just kind of backtracking a bit, I remember like buying a leather purse at one point.
Oh, really?
And then thinking, oh my God, why did I buy that leather purse? And then buying a non-leather one. And
I still have leather stuff in my collection.
Occasionally I would like do these weird things when there was no internet, and if I wasn't reading and I wasn't surrounded by vegetarians. And I was thinking at that point, I remember telling myself these weird things like, oh, you have to adapt to your environment. The silly excuses you make for yourself. And when my daughter was small, I didn't really have much time to think about. I didn't have much time to think about things. I understand where people are. But I think about six years ago. I don't know how I went vegan exactly, but I was thinking about it for a while. I remember. I think I must have been getting more information from maybe internet.
Okay.
I guess that must have been starting somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I remember on the day of the earthquake in 2011.
Yes.
I remember actually I was in the immigration office doing something to do with my visa, renewing it or something, and I was like typing something on my phone about, human beings have no rights to use animals, they just do it because they can and they're stronger.
Yeah.
I think I was like reanalyzing my motivation for everything.
Okay.
And then I think a few months later I went vegan. I remember like what happened was we had a rescue dog. Mm-hmm. I think the rescue dog made me think about animals again.
All right, yeah.
We got a dog from a neighbour, Poppy. He's almost 12 now.
Okay,
we got
cool.
a rescue pup. And then we actually went to buy him a dog bed one day, and we ended up, me and my daughter, buying a lovebird. I don't know what happened because I'm really anti-pet shops and like buying animals. But we bought this bird, and then I got home and realised that this kind of bird lives 30 years.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, I can't keep him in a cage. So of course he lives cage-free in our apartment.
All right.
That's
interesting.
He's one of our family members. We absolutely adore him now, but I wouldn't recommend anyone getting one. But we got this bird, and I began having this awful... I went through this like, my God, what's happened to me? I used to be an animal rights activist, and I bought a bird from a pet shop. And then I went to the Tower Records bookshop to look for a book about moral status of animals or something.
Right. Yeah.
And I found Eating Animals.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about it.
And I read Eating Animals, and then I looked at some of the YouTube links in the back and saw the baby calves in the dairy farm. And that was basically it. I thought, I can't find... I'd been trying to look for like healthy organic milk, and I'd been looking for like trying to find like non-battery cage eggs. I thought I can't do that. It's just stupid. It's just much easier just to be vegan.
Exactly.
I can't keep like
the
effort of trying to justify my actions.
I mean, the only way I can see someone like milk, I don't see it happening ever, but because you would really need to be in the countryside. But eggs, like if you're like even a bit of the suburbs of Tokyo or something like that, or a big city, having like your own hens and like laying hens and maybe rescuing them, right, and just having whatever eggs they're like laying down for you, which is not going to be maybe one a day or whatever.
How many people are actually going to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Why bother? You know,
but even that, and like if you're going all the way to that kind of extreme just for eggs, then it's weird. I mean, I guess you would do that to rescue the animals in the first place, or maybe you just happen to have those hens in the first place and then you went vegan or whatever, and you're still eating eggs because they're there. That would be understandable. But yeah, I think trying to find ethical animal products.
You can't. It's impossible. There aren't ethical animal products.
I don't think there are any.
No, they don't want to die. I mean, even if they live... Anyway, it's just not sustainable. It's just no point. Just why bother? Yeah. If you can live another way, if you can live happily and healthy without using them, like, why not do that?
Exactly, it's less... Yeah, it's easier in practical sense, but it's also easier from an ethical sense to be consistent with probably your values at that point of like time, if you're an ethical vegan, right? And also, as far as I'm concerned, I'm very much in line with what like Peter Singer is arguing for, which is, I mean, ultimately, I don't think there's any natural rights to begin with. Like, if you go down to it, it's like the only law there is the strongest wins. But
exactly.
if you want to have if you want to aim higher for something that's more humane, let's say, and have rights, human rights, animal rights, rights in general, I think there's no way to justify using another living being, another sentient being, without its, her, his, whatever you call it, consent. And like, even if I had the consent, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. But I mean, you can't get the consent of a animal.
No,
so
of course not.
A non-human animal.
No.
I mean, so there's no way to really start a conversation about how humane it is to slaughter in this way or that way, or like, I think it's if you just go with the theory, right, and you don't talk from this is the way society is nowadays, so how to make it more livable for animals, then yeah, sure, then we can talk about how to kill them in a less painful way. But it only has to be the shortest in time step possible on the way to let's not kill them anymore.
Exactly, right? Yeah. As a kind of process, I can understand that, make it better and then improve it. But I think the thing for me is, I really think that, human beings, we have an image of ourselves that we're somehow good.
Yes.
We think we're good people and we're trying to make the world a better place and buying the charity Christmas record or whatever, CD or whatever, I don't know, download now these days. But I began to realize that for most of the animals on our planet, we look like monsters.
Oh, definitely.
We are devils. Like, that Alien film where that slashing monster comes. Have you seen Alien?
Oh, yeah,
any
aliens,
horror film.
yeah.
That slashing evil predator wants to eat the people in there. Like, the animals think that is what we look like to them.
Probably.
And I do not want to be that. I do not want to take part of that.
Fair enough.
That's like, I do not accept that that's okay. I don't want to be part of that system. I know it's really hard to take yourself out of it completely because we live in that kind of world where that's being normalized.
It's almost impossible.
I'm not saying it's perfect or we are better than other people. I'm just saying that personally, I do not feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pay for that. If I've got a choice, I want to buy something else.
Yeah. I'm 100% in agreement with you on that. So go back to your life as a vegetarian. You told me you had, and then as a vegan, you told me you had most of your friends were vegetarian.
Well, not most of them, but quite a lot of them. The foreign friends were vegetarian.
Okay.
Yeah, or they were. It was easy because you can all go to the Italian restaurant, or you can all go to you can all eat cake together and ice cream.
But as a vegetarian, for example, so when you met your husband and then he became vegetarian, and you definitely had, like, I don't know how many close friends you had like that were Japanese, but definitely being in couple with a Japanese person, you probably had to interact with his family, etc. And were there any kind of specific challenges there from being vegetarian?
No, not at all. I mean, occasionally I went to a couple of business dinners where there was nothing to eat. But basically everybody was fine. I had no problem at all.
Oh, really?
I had like zero problem living as a slightly loose vegetarian in Japan. Okay. Absolutely no problem.
And what about him then? Because I was just talking with Lohan the other week where we're saying something along the lines that if something is accepted for him or me, like for example, we're vegan at a kind of gathering among colleagues or whatever, and his colleagues are Japanese, mine are not, but and he was saying like how he felt it was like very open-minded, etc. But another way to look at it is maybe it's just because you're a foreigner, so you're not treated as a Japanese person for good and for bad, let's say. And so I can imagine how a lot of Japanese people becoming vegetarian when they're adult, especially if they're guys, because Japan is still very much you're a man if you eat meat kind of society. Did that impact his social life in some ways that he talked about, or?
I don't think he just didn't make a big deal of it. Okay. I think when he first went vegetarian, a few of his friends were sort of like, I think I'm just thinking back many years, we're going, oh, it's Nadia's influence. But he just said, I can decide what I do myself.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then he's a very open-minded person. And then I remember, like, I think basically, maybe don't want to speak for him because it's his own thing, but I think lots of business people I know, they just basically don't really make a big deal of it. Like, for example, I meet so many Japanese people at Meetup, of course.
Yes.
A lot of them, of course, are open vegetarians and vegans. Yeah. But a lot of them, especially people that work in companies, they're kind of in the closet.
Yeah.
They tell me all
they
the
don't
time.
Say anything
they go to the nomikai and they'll just kind of like eat some edamame under the radar.
Yeah.
And they won't really... they just won't say anything and they'll just kind of quietly be vegan. Or like maybe my husband will say, oh, I want to eat something healthy, let's go to Nataraj, the Indian place or something. So,
I see.
I think, it's more sort of, if people ask, he might say something, but the people doesn't really make a big deal of it, because I think with friends and business, it's different. I think one thing my husband told me is that when you're doing business, you don't want to be talking about your personal philosophy about anything. You want to be talking about business, and when you're talking with personal friends, you've got a bit more kind of leeway. But I think that's basically the thing,
All right. And like, is that true as well for becoming vegan 6 years ago? Did it impact your social life or the social life of your like husband or your daughter to some extent?
Not really. I think we just kind of do our own thing, and luckily we don't work for sort of like really strict companies or anything like that. We have our own businesses, both of us.
All right, that's great.
So, and my daughter's kind of quite happy to go along with it, and she actually won her school speech contest last year with her speech "Vegan Saves the World." It was about the future of food and water.
I see. Has she got any kind of good feedback from that, like people being like genuinely interested in vegetarianism or veganism, and then like actually changing maybe slightly
one of
their
her
diet?
best friends went vegan and become an animal rights activist.
Awesome.
And quite a few of her friends at school are trying to be more vegetarian and vegan.
I see.
Of course, they're very young. She's only 16.
Yeah, she's attending a Japanese school?
It's a Japanese high school, but with international kind of part.
I see.
But I think her school was very easygoing. They also entered her other speech about veganism into a speech contest as well. But I think it's like basically, who can argue with that? You can easily argue the future of food and water will be vegan. I mean, it's like it's not
sustainable.
It's
like,
not
the way things are nowadays, and that's hard to say otherwise. So.
Yeah, and she kind of won her Chugaku, her junior high school speech contest as well, about dog shelters. She did a speech about dog shelters and stuff. So I think it's basically just kind of the life we live. Of course, my family are not so into it as me. They're just doing their normal life. If things come up, they do it, but they're not activists per se. They're busy with their own lives. Right. But I don't see any reason why you can't just incorporate parts of those things.
And can I ask you, and you're totally free not to really answer if it's not a topic that's something you really want to share, but I'm curious, like, I have a little brother, a younger brother. He has 2 daughters, and they're very young, but he's not vegan. He's very much interested in the ethical arguments about veganism, but like, there's a family thing going on, it's not easy to manage, I suppose. And long story short, I don't have kids, but I can imagine how, even if he was vegan at some point in the next few years, and the mother of his daughters as well, children being children, they might at some point ask questions and like kind of maybe even try to challenge parental authority, and that might include what they believe in, their values, and for example veganism. Did your daughter at some point in her especially early teenage years challenge your views about veganism and maybe express like feelings of wanting to be omnivore or do something like that?
I remember like when she was like about 2 years old, we were going to a party.
I see.
And we went into the convenience store, and she picked up, she was really cute. She picked up like a bento, "Mummy, let's have this one," and picked up the bento box and like the lunch box. I said to her, "Oh, darling, that one's got baby squished up animals in it. Let's get the other one." She was like, "Oh my God." And she put it back. Then after that, she'd always say, "Does this one have baby squished up animals in it?" And so basically we just kind of carried on like that.
Okay.
And I didn't really make a big thing of it. Vegetarian was quite easy to do.
I see. Because you can have ice cream and that kind of treats as well.
And at her kindergarten or whatever, we'd have like there's always kids with allergies and things anyway. So it wasn't really.
So you bring that,
And at primary school, it was a bit more difficult because we managed to get them to make her lunch without meat in.
Yes.
But I think there was some kind of maybe dashi and
see,
stuff,
yeah.
a little bit of fish and things. But we thought we just decided just to go for that because we thought at that point it was better for her just to sort of eat the school lunch.
Yeah, to not be ostracized or.
Yeah, so we managed to like without meat, but it was still kind of. But then we were still being loose, and my husband was still eating fish a bit.
Oh,
so
really? Okay.
We were still being loose vegetarians then. But since we went vegan, I mean, I think my husband and daughter, I don't know exactly, again, I'm talking for them, I don't know, they're a bit looser than me about things like dashi. And they're a bit looser because they have different situation to me. You know, I'm like a vegan activist.
Okay,
my kids at school. I mean, my kids at school, my husband's at work. So I think they're a bit looser about some aspects, although they're all pretty veganish.
Okay.
You know. But I've never, when I first went vegan, I didn't sort of force them all to go vegan too. I was like, well, let's have the vegan options at home, and you know, if you want to eat sweets with your friends, it's totally up to you.
Okay.
And I'm still like that with my daughter. So I think occasionally she might backtrack just because it's easier.
Oh, really?
You know, to have some sweets. But she said to me recently she really wants to do vegan as much as she possibly can.
Yeah, that's nice.
I think the point is just to sort of like let people just make their minds up for themselves.
Of course. And, like not being
it's not
pressured
easy for
into
some people. If we were living in England, it's much easier.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
You know, I mean, my family's all vegan in England now too.
Yeah.
It's super easy.
Oh, really? Your family, like
my sister, my two nieces.
Okay.
My brother-in-law is still vegetarian.
Huh.
But my nieces were brought up big vegetarian too, which is ordinary in Britain.
Oh, really?
And they're about like early 20s, late teens.
Oh, really?
But they all went vegan a couple of years ago.
Okay, great. I mean, hearing all that.
What is vegan? I mean, vegan is basically do what you can with what you've got.
I got you there, but to me, it's still like hearing all that. I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised at all if you were like the only vegan in your social environment, you know, and having had like very.
Even
let's say frustrating challenges and things like that. You know, I think it's maybe even more the norm than having like almost your whole family at least vegetarian and like just hearing again my brother talk about how the few times the topic was brought up during dinners in his the family of his girlfriend. He got so much backlash, you know, from like being like, I didn't hear what happened exactly, but the few things he told me, like, yeah, I don't know how I would have reacted, but definitely not in the best way that, it would be super frustrating, basically. When you're isolated, let's say, from both practically because you just can't buy whatever you want because you have people eating with you, and also because you can't talk about it. Because if you talk about it, it's challenging people who are living with you or like people who are related to whom you're living with. And so you have to choose your battles, right? And when I go back in Belgium, I'm single. I don't like have kids, so I can do whatever I want, basically, right? And I can come with like enough energy to kind of like push them a bit around and do that like with a smile, or less so in the first few months of my vegan journey. But yeah, it must be hard for some people. A lot of people who have like, they're like closely related to people who they're not there yet, or they might never be there. Right?
I think the thing is, it depends like what base you're coming from. So basically, ever since my husband met me, I've been a vegetarian, and I've always talked about animal rights and stuff. So of course, if he didn't like that,
you would have like
if he was a real carnist, we wouldn't have connected or been together for like 25 years.
True.
So, but now because I naturally evolved to vegan, then the family, of course, I changed. At home, no one eats vegetarian food or anything. We don't eat any animal products. And naturally they're always finding vegan things for me.
It becomes the norm, right?
It's just the normal. So my daughter's been brought up in that philosophy. So I kind of wish I'd brought her up as a vegan.
I see.
It was hard for her, at like to be like early teens or late
like
teens.
around like 10,
Suddenly
11.
mummy's come home and says, okay, darling, from now on we can't have milk chocolate, we can't have ice cream, we can't have... Of course it was a bit like, oh, okay. But I did my best to find alternatives. We made like yonanas, every day for about 6 months. But of course it's hard when you've been brought up doing one thing to change. Even for me, it was hard to change. It took a while. So I think you have to understand, but as long as you have the core values are the same and you've been... But it's difficult, I think, if you suddenly go from being a meat eater and raising your children as meat eaters, and then you suddenly go vegan. It must be really hard because your family have to come to want that themselves. You can't just force them to suddenly stop doing that. You have to explain to them why that is a good thing and get them on board.
And even like explaining, because then you are challenging what's already established, and you're challenging a lot of
I've told you that and I've told you this.
There's that, and also like it's just a huge leap forward, and usually you don't bring it up as you yourself walk that line from omnivore to vegetarian to vegan. But in my case, it came way later. I was vegan, at least in my mind. I was still vegetarian outside for social reasons, but vegan at home. And that Christmas I went back home and I had talked about it online already on video calls and everything. What are we doing for Christmas? Because I'm not eating any meat. And we got almost vegetarian Christmas. Still, my father managed to sneak in some meat, more by tradition than anything else, I think. But it's definitely not something that for the 1 year or 1 year and a half that preceded that, I talked about gradually, right? So it kind of in the last 4 months, I've been talking about this. Now that's Christmas, and what do we do? And so it went really well, all things considered, right? I've heard, again, from the family of my brother's girlfriend, things that if I had been in that kind of family, would have been very challenging. So I'm super happy for you. It sounds like almost an ideal scenario there. I mean, you might have passed some details, but it really having people you can connect with.
I'm just lucky I happen to be married to somebody who's very easygoing.
That's cool.
But of course I married him because he is very flexible and easygoing. We've been together happily. But I think it must be hard if you haven't got that. And of course remember that, vegetarian has been really ordinary in London, in Britain, for 30 years. So 30 years ago we were already having vegetarian nut roast for Christmas. It's just a matter of changing the vegetarian sausages for vegan sausages. And the products now in London and England are catching up. They're just
I heard
last
about
summer
that.
it was all ice creams, a whole cupboard full of ice creams, vegan ones.
I've been.
It's easy.
I haven't been in London in a long time, and I wasn't vegan the first few times I've been there, so I don't know. But I've been in New York a year ago, and it was a whole different world than what we have here in Tokyo, right? So at some day in Tokyo as well, it will probably be as convenient, easy, and
it will be
available. Right.
And my Japanese family, my husband's family are so easygoing too.
That's cool.
They've never tried to force me to.
That's awesome.
Eat anything.
And then neither challenge your reasons for being.
They're always oh, that's really great. It's really healthy, and they they make vegetable curry when we go around.
Oh, cool. That's great.
And they've never been weird, or they've always thought it's oh, it's great, wonderful. And I'm not sure they're doing that themselves exactly, but I think it's a good thing. Of course, it's not a negative, is it? I mean,
no. No,
but
it's great.
I'm lucky maybe with that's why I'm able to do the vegan activism. Because if I had to if everyday challenges,
if it's a battle every day,
then I wouldn't have enough
energy.
Energy. But now I just think it's super fun, and I've got the people around me on board.
That's great.
Apparently I'm really boring though. Apparently my husband said I can change any conversation to a vegan topic within 5 minutes or 5 seconds, and my daughter too, stop talking about vegan stuff. But I'm oh my god, every day it's I found a new vegan thing, there's a new farm sanctuary. I'm really obsessed. But
that's
it's fun.
Great.
It's my hobby.
Just a very short apartheid here, farm sanctuary in Japan.
There's a new one just opened.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I read something. I actually
It's
looked
on
that up.
AJ.
I looked that up a month ago, and I don't think there was anything.
Well, do you follow Animal Advocacy Japan?
It's in my feed, so I
one
think
of
I
my
read something
projects,
about that. Yeah.
A couple of us started that a few years ago because we found it was hard. Like before I became Vegan Meetup organizer, I began volunteering for the Animal Rights Center.
Yeah.
But it was really hard for me to like find a place to go to, find the information. I'm not that great at reading Japanese still.
Yeah.
And it was quite hard to find the information.
Okay.
Although I speak good Japanese.
Yes.
In English. So we made Animal Advocacy Japan. So to help foreign people connect with groups.
Yeah.
They all need donations and things.
All right.
So-
Yeah.
And also to let people abroad know a little bit about.
What's happening in Japan?
Because no one knows. Everyone just thinks, oh, Japan, it must be okay.
Yeah, it must be like Western countries that are like economically
not.
equivalent, which is not.
No,
Yeah.
like I think England, for example, has got A ranking on animal welfare. I think Japan was like D.
D. Okay.
I think it's something like D.
So
which is-
since we segued into this topic, and you're pretty knowledgeable about it, so how has been the factory farming industry in Japan compared to what people might know in Europe and maybe even the States if you're knowledgeable about those two areas of the world? How has it like been in the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years? Has there been any change in the past few years?
Yeah, I think the main differences is like in animals in every single country, factory farming, like animals are not covered by laws basically in any country.
Yeah,
not just
they're
Japan.
products, right?
But the difference is like in, for example, Europe, England, or even in the States, we have like huge animal welfare organizations and charities who are like employing lots of lawyers who are working actively on trying to change the law.
Yeah.
And they're like making some inroads, things like getting rid of gestation crates.
Yeah, for pigs. Yeah.
For pigs, and things like, stall free and things like battery cages.
Yeah, less.
And they're working on raising awareness.
Yeah.
But the trouble is in Japan, we don't have any animal welfare laws basically protecting farm animals.
Okay.
Like other countries. And also, we don't have any big welfare organizations. We don't have a RSPCA or Humane Society, for example.
Yeah.
The basic animal welfare ones that everybody gives money to, whether they're an activist or not.
Okay.
We don't have any of those organizations. We only have a few, like, Animal Rights Center, but they have, like, for example, like one paid staff member.
All right. Yeah.
And we only have like small things like the Humane League, which has come to Japan recently, and Japan Anti-Vivisection Association.
Yeah, that was there a while ago.
Yeah,
right?
but they have like almost no budget.
Okay.
And people don't donate to charity in Japan.
Yes. Okay.
So they're like trying to like fight all these battles with very few resources.
Okay.
So the difference is people don't know what's happening and things are not changing.
Yeah, there's no
They're
one
not
trying to
changing.
make them change, like compared to.
Compared to other countries. So things are awful. Like, Japan is D and it's getting worse. There used to be lots of small farms and now it's becoming those super farms.
Yeah, that's happening worldwide.
Yeah, and we have
right?
and people don't even think it's like embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, have you been to Shinagawa Slaughterhouse?
No.
You can like see over the fence.
I have never been to any slaughterhouses. I don't think I will go.
They have a museum.
Unless I have someone I want to bring with me, because it's like a big documentary. It's a bit like documentaries that are hard to watch. I wouldn't watch them at all if it wasn't like to be able to recommend them to people who are on the path of like asking questions about those things, right? So if I had someone close to me that I was thinking like that might be a good stimuli, like pushing them towards more vegans, I would go, but I wouldn't subject myself to like, I cried watching Dominion. I'm not going to go to a slaughterhouse. I'm going to get PTSD.
No, I wish I hadn't gone actually. I didn't actually go, I just went outside it. But even seeing the poor animals waiting over the fence was horrible. But all I mean to say is that, people, it's really hard to raise awareness of these things.
Yeah, no, true.
And, the pigs are basically, about 80-something% of the pigs are in gestation crates.
Okay.
And nearly all the chickens are in battery cages.
Yeah.
The cows are tethered indoors most of the year. but people don't know about these things.
Yeah, they don't know, right? I have a friend who's vegan, but his wife is not, and it's been a long time, and upon talking about the things with her, what he told me was like, she's, as far as I know, that's what he told me. She thinks it's not true. Most of it is not true, and Japan is way better than what we see in those documentaries. But it's actually worse.
What? Yeah, of course, it's way worse. And people have no idea. Like, I think I was helping the Animal Rights Centre with various things. Like, one thing that really affected me a lot was a few years ago, they were writing to the OIE. It's an organization which has welfare guidelines for like farmed animals, and Japan has signed the various pledges to take care of animals. On things like animals in Japan are not given water on the way to slaughter or before slaughter.
Is that true in other countries as well?
It's true in many countries. Yeah, in Europe, it's quite good, but of course we have live export and issues that. So once you get outside, but it's true in some countries, but in many countries they kind of have to give them water or they are pledged to.
Yes.
But in Japan, they routinely, as a rule, don't give them any water. So they can be like 24 hours or even longer without water. And I remember going through the data and trying to help, write the letters in English. And it was just so shocking. Like when you really look at what's happening, that even denying animals something as small as a drink of water.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're products. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Right? As long as you get your money worth at the end of the day, there's no reason to be human. I mean, if you start to think about their welfare, then it becomes a horrible, even more horrible job. So you have to disconnect totally.
Exactly.
And so once you disconnect totally, it's just about getting the product made and selling it. And I mean, it makes sense. It's horrible, but it makes sense. It's not something you want to happen. But...
And showering them with cold water while they're waiting for slaughter.
Yeah.
Just things like that. Just horrible, But anyway, I'm sure like a lot of people listening to this, I'm not sure how much they know about these things, but for me, that's unacceptable.
No, totally.
That's why I don't eat meat or want to eat animal products, because this is the whole industry is like.
And if you go to supermarkets or wherever they sell meat and you ask people around, and even I was like that because I wasn't interested in knowing more about it, but I was feeling like, it's a Japanese product. If you buy pork and your Japanese pork is more expensive than your imported, like, American pork, I mean, there has to be some... I was...
Yeah, of course.
Some reasons
we kind of think, it must be okay.
It must be better quality, better...
healthy,
the pork from, Kagoshima and blah, blah, blah. And so you get all those products that are sold like as local products, and then you feel like you're getting quality, right? But if the reality is that it's actually worse than in most industrialized countries.
I think probably America might be worse, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Depending. But I don't know. See, we don't know where the animals come from, And basically, you can't, it's not sustainable to have all the animals free range anyway. That would just
totally.
kill our planet.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I just basically, my feeling is that, I think most ordinary people are quite good. I do believe that people are good.
True.
I think if people had to keep a chicken in a battery cage in their living room in the corner, or they had to keep a mama pig, in a gestation crate in the corner of their house, they wouldn't be able to do it.
Totally.
We say, okay, you do this for one day and watch the animal lie there in the crate with the piglets. You just do that, even if it was warm and everything and they had water. People could not stand to see that.
Oh, exactly.
So why can you stand to see it why can you buy products when they're hidden?
It's just
doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, from a psychological perspective, it makes total sense. Like the cognitive dissonance is a powerful asset of human beings to live without going crazy, right? And not only with diet, but a lot of other things. So that makes total sense. But once you feel uncomfortable about that enough that it doesn't go away totally, like it does for quite a few people, I suppose. And I think, and I discussed that with Lohan as well, and it's even something like Saori brought up indirectly. I think making the move towards more consistency makes you happier.
I think so. Living according to your values makes you feel very happy. It's very freeing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm sure I do lots of things.
I'm not either.
So the glue in my shoes is not great, or occasionally I might have something.
In that sense, like the bicycle you have, the car, it's impossible.
I'm not saying that we have to be more. We're not morally superior. We're not
the choices, though, and that I defend. I think the choices, and I don't really. Well, I do care, but I think it's important enough that I will accept people disliking me because of it. But I think the choices you make, if you're vegan, when you eat, if you choose to not eat anything that has animal products in it, is morally superior based on what I view as being the base of my ethical system, right?
Well,
and because if it wasn't, I wouldn't do it.
Well, I think basically for me, like living without, I tried to sort of like not say recently I am vegan. I tried to say I'm living vegan because I see it more as a philosophy.
I see.
Recently, I'm trying to get away from the language like that.
Yeah.
But I kind of forgot what I was going to say. What were you saying? Morally superior?
Because you were saying like we're not morally superior, but I think like it's not about the, because
it's not about
realize
us, is it?
I realize it's not labeling someone like as being bad or good or whatever is not going to help, but not labeling, not judging their actions, right? So, for example, if I eat a piece of meat rather than a dish that has no meat, the choice of eating the piece of meat to me is worse, morally speaking, than eating the vegan dish.
Well, if you think something is wrong, and if you think cruelty to animals is wrong, and then you eat the meat, that's kind of, what's that about? It's just out of sync with your values.
It's out of sync,
So, but I don't know. I really think that more people would be vegan if they really thought about what their food choices actually involve.
Yeah, no, totally. If you were seeing it, yes.
Also, they knew that there was options that taste just as good.
And that's.
And I wish it was a non-issue. I don't really want to go around talking about vegan stuff.
And having more options is one of the main strength, I think, making people realize that of Tokyo Vegan Meetup, right? Because what's great about it, like for example, yesterday.
You were hosting for us.
Yes, I did my best. I didn't do as good a job as I should have taken pictures of the people, but it was very fun, and I enjoyed it. And one of the guests was a guest who came a month ago, and she's not vegan, she's omnivore, but she came again because the food is good. Well, who knows, right? Along the line, if she just like happens to think more about it, maybe she will change her diet at some point. Maybe not, but if the food wasn't good, it's a no-win. You're sure she's not gonna change it, right? And realizing that there's really good food options.
Well, now we're at a really lucky time in life, aren't we? Where there actually are food options, and we all know that you can be healthy. Like
in the past was way harder, right?
Yeah, but I remember too. I think it's really that connections are really important. I remember the first time I met a vegetarian. I was 14 at school.
Okay.
And a boy in my year, we went on some geography field trip, and I remember him telling me about that the pink lemonade we were drinking had squashed up beetles in it.
Oh
which actually is true. And that was
true. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's like 40 years ago. 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I met another vegetarian at college, and then I kind of stopped eating. I tried to stop eating meat things with her.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, when I met another vegetarian, and then it was the time in Britain I went vegetarian. And I didn't tell you the actual reason why I actually went vegan in the end, did I?
No, I don't think so.
So I was thinking about going vegan. Then I knew there was Tokyo Vegan Meetup.
Yeah.
And I was like, I better go vegan, otherwise I can't go there.
Really?
So I thought, okay, I'll just become vegan.
They were already open to everyone, right?
They were open, yes. I went along to the meetup, but then I found that most of the people there were not actually vegan.
Yeah.
So I was a bit disappointed. But anyway.
Yeah, people come to the meetups where actually not mostly vegan.
But I thought, well, if there's a vegan meetup, maybe I should go vegan, otherwise I can't really go there.
Oh, really?
It's really weird looking back on it now.
Yeah, it is.
But then I thought, it's fun and what. But I think if other people are doing it and they're managing okay.
Yeah. Seeing people around you do it is actually inspiring, and it's also one of the reasons why, for me, this podcast makes sense from an activism, let's say, soft activism point of view. And so you went to this vegan meetup. So that was 6 years ago?
I think so. Before I became organizer, maybe about 6 years ago.
All right. And so
2011 or 12.
What was the most? Is there something that was surprising to you, or like you remember fondly about your first few meetups?
No, I didn't really enjoy them.
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah, the first one I went to, I kept asking people, "Are you vegan?" and they said no. And then some guy, I was trying to talk about animal rights,
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
That's why I went there, because I wanted someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And then some guy said to me, "Oh, please don't talk about those subjects because my friend isn't vegan and you might upset him."
Oh, really?
I didn't go back for a while.
Oh, yeah.
But then I went another time and I got talking to Darcy, one of our friends.
I see. Yeah.
You're going to interview him. And
Yeah,
then,
I'm going to
that was
do
a
that,
great
yes.
time. And then shortly after that, the old organizer left. So like now I really do try really hard to make sure that we have all kinds of people
Yes,
there. And,
yeah.
and I try to fix the people, get the people talking to people they've got something in common with. you
Oh,
know?
really? Yeah,
Like if I see non-vegans,
Yeah.
I try to put them with the
Oh,
other
really?
people. Or,
That's how far you're
or
going.
if I know people are actually vegans,
That's
I try
great.
to make sure they're not. That's why we try to make it so people can move around.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Because people are all at different places
Yes,
and they
yes,
want
yes.
to have different things.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
we try
yeah.
to be very conscious to make sure everyone's got the right people to talk to.
Yeah,
And if
I-
they obviously don't look comfortable, we try and come over and
Yeah, I
see
did
if
a
they want
bit of
some
that
help.
yesterday, but I feel like I could have done maybe a bit more of that.
No, I always feel the same way. It's not perfect. People
Well,
have to take
I
responsibility for
have
themselves.
a high opinion of your hosting skills and how you do things usually, and I think most people share that opinion because.
Oh, it's so sweet.
Yeah, no, I talked a bit about it. Like it was.
I never get a
Nadia
chance
is
to talk
always-
to anybody. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
always
yeah.
like
Well, there's that,
worrying.
right? Yeah. So yeah, all right. And so the organizer at the time. So he left 5 years ago?
Yeah, oh, he's a lovely guy. Yeah. Yeah.
So he left 5 years ago, and that's
Left
how
Japan,
you got.
yeah.
he
So
left Japan.
he was like asking around for new organizers, and I thought, well, I'm really like having parties. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
And so when my kid was young, we had lots of kid parties.
I
and
see.
Before she was born, we had lots of parties anyway, But I thought, oh well, I love being vegan because I was
Yeah.
really involved with animal rights already
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And I love having parties. So this seems like fun, So yeah, and then I found Saori, and so we made it all bilingual.
Yeah. She told me a bit about how she ended up being a co-organizer.
Yeah, she's so friendly. I said, oh,
She is.
I want
She
her.
is. Yeah.
I just went up to her and said,
Yeah.
I want to be organized.
Yeah. And she told me like you asked her and she said yes immediately.
Yeah. It was great.
That's great. Yeah.
Perfect.
And how was it organizing those events in the first place? Because I think the vegan meetup group kind of grew exponentially,
It was
really like a
basically-
lot.
Yeah, it was basically just once a month at Pink Cow.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, even before Saori joined us, we had Steve, the bodybuilder guy.
Oh, yeah.
He was helping me with co-organizing at the
Okay.
beginning. And then we thought, well, we've got lots of people, so let's try to make more events. Because I think different people might want different
might
events.
show up at different days,
Yeah,
right?
and why
Everyone
not?
can't come on
Yeah.
Thursdays, etc. Yeah.
It's a bit hard in the beginning because a lot of vegan restaurants are quite risk averse.
Yeah.
And they didn't know who we are.
Yes.
So, but then we kind of after a few months of trial and error, we kind of figured out a kind of template that works for our group. We don't want to do anything that's pay in advance. We have to do low risk.
Yes.
We don't get paid, but the money goes to the venue. But
Yeah.
the venue has to be quite flexible.
Yeah,
So we
because of
can't
the numbers you can't.
guarantee,
Yeah.
So we find a kind of template that works well for our group, and of course now we've managed to move into things like the vegantokyo.org website.
Yes,
And stuff.
yeah.
We're moving more into sort of outreach and sharing everyone's information like a portal.
Yeah.
I like the idea of sharing everyone's stuff because everyone's doing great stuff. I'd like the idea of putting it all together so people can find it.
Which is also
and publicizing other people's things.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't want to do my own blog, but I want to introduce other people's vlogs.
Yeah, I see. Yeah,
I love
connecting
that kind
people.
of stuff.
Yeah,
It's really fun. Yeah, I like connecting people with each other. So I
Great.
just love it. It's really fun. It's got a lot of time.
Yeah, it sounds like it, right? I asked Saori about how many hours it involves.
Endless.
And I mean,
Really
she said something like, yeah, we're both freelance, but basically, if it's less than 2 hours a day, it's more the exception than the rule. So.
Yeah, it just takes up all your free time. You have to be quite careful. But I'm hoping to get more people involved.
Yeah, you made an announcement about that.
Yeah, and we will reach out more next year because
Really?
it's getting a bit too much. Yeah.
And I already asked that question to Saori, but since, I mean, I don't know exactly when this podcast will be available to the public, and even if someone like in the Tokyo area will listen to it. But if that happens and you still don't have someone to help, or you're still looking for someone to help, what kind of help would that be? What kind of tasks, how many hours, what kind of skills are you looking for apart from just enthusiasm?
Okay, I got it. Okay, basically there's various different things. One is like event hosting and creating events. I'd like to have more small events like lunches and things. So people that are willing to do that as volunteers would be one good thing as well. I'd like to have lots of different smaller events too. That's one thing. The other thing is social media. Social media is very time consuming.
Yes, it is.
Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah.
Also people to come and take photographs, which they could then upload for us. In terms of the vegan or vegantokyo.org website, we need everything, like people to create like lists of like vegan shops.
I see.
We have very basic things on there now.
But this would be a hub, right? The website is like, you would like it to be kind of a hub towards other resources,
have you seen
right?
the website?
Yeah, I've seen it. I
just
didn't
basically
shared it
like
with people.
have lots and lots of tabs.
Yes,
like,
yes,
like
it
now
does,
with
yeah.
shops
Yeah,
and
yeah,
lots
yeah,
of
yeah,
links
yeah.
and stuff like that. Also, if people want to write articles on something, I'd love to link that, or I'd like to link people's vlogs and things, but we need people to actually get the data together. So more than anything, it's kind of organizing the data.
Yeah, and make it in a kind of digestible...
putting, or even just gathering 10 links we can just upload, or actually physically uploading. Things like designing leaflets, designing logo. Because we're doing more and more vegan outreach, we need more like design. Luckily, we've got a few people helping us now with designing and stuff like that.
All right.
Anything like that, website design, things people want to do, anything really, whatever skill. But social media would be great. If
social media, if
like
there's one thing right
over.
now, social media would be really helpful then.
Because it's really, I'm doing Animal Advocacy Japan as well. So I have to keep on looking for posts and translation.
Translation?
Especially from Japanese into English. Or finding stories to share, this kind of thing, finding interesting
For example,
articles.
the farm animal sanctuary.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm hoping to get involved with next year. I've got a few ideas about fundraising.
All right.
But I'm also thinking we could get people like designers to help them make goods they could sell, or I've got someone translating the information into English right now. And I'm hoping to do some fundraising for them, do some events.
I see.
And we're also going to have more talk events, like vegan influencers.
Yeah, you had, influences, how so? Because I was going to bring up the few presentation events that you had with the ARC,
Humane League,
Humane League, etc.
I
came to
want
present stuff about like cage-free eggs, etc.
I'm thinking of more rebranding, more rebranding. For example, getting people that are doing really interesting things to come and give a talk about what they do and how people can help them and why vegan or whatever, and health, environment, but also suggesting people, coordinating events. Like now we're doing everything. It takes really a lot of time.
I can imagine. There's only two of you, right?
Yeah, we could do more if more people wanted to help. We could actually get more events made and putting the event pages up on Facebook, even just physical things, anything at all that people want to do, But we just do what we can. At the moment, we're just doing what we can.
I think it's already awesome. I mean, it feels like, especially when you start attending frequently, a bit like I do, like basically all the events, but those where I'm not in Tokyo. It feels like very much like a community, and you feel like you're stronger in your stance as a vegan, and it helps like connect with people, make friends, and just eat good food, and you can attend the way you want, right? You can attend only once a month and just like enjoy the food, enjoy the few friends that you're used to talk with, or you can just attend more and start to try and meet a lot of new people each time. And so I think it's a great place to, and it's not judgmental at all, like you said. Like no one will judge you if you're like an omnivore, and you'll be able to try different foods, and that's really like seeing such positivity and positive energy. I think it's one of the most powerful way to do activism and to make people think about those issues.
Yeah, definitely. I really hope that's true. I'm actually happy if people all make friends with each other and don't come. You know, sometimes people come to meet up and they make their own friends. They don't come for a while. You know, whatever works for people is fine. Anyway.
Great. Well, I know you can't stay much longer. One last question would be your top 3 places to eat vegan food in Tokyo. It could be a all vegan place. It could be like a vegan option place.
I really like. There's so many great places to eat. It really depends on what you want. But there's some really great places where we do have meetups that I love. Like one, of course, is Hemp.
Yeah.
Hemp is a really cool place.
Hemp Cafe. Yeah, it's a great place. Yeah.
Another one I really like, I like the name Vegan Cafe.
Yeah, it was nice. I really love the food over there. I've been there once only, but yeah.
And of course, I have to say Tea's Restaurant.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
great.
Because, of course, apart from the Tea's Tantan, they have Tea's Restaurant in Chugaoka.
Yeah, I've been there once.
We get all our birthday cakes and our osechi ryori at New Year's.
Yeah.
We get all our stuff from there.
Yeah, it's cool.
I think those 3 are probably the ones that I would recommend.
All right, I'll definitely go and visit them again.
I like Raw too.
Yeah, Dotro. Yeah. It's a very cozy place, and I mean, you have to love raw food, but it's all you can eat. The music, I like it. I like the way it's organized. It's a great vibe. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Very last thing. How can people get in touch with you?
Just message us on vegantokyo.org.
Okay.
Or Tokyo Vegan Meetup group.
All right.
And we have a Facebook too. It's now called, we've changed the name of our Facebook group. It's called Vegan Tokyo.
All right. Cool. Awesome.
Or Instagram.
Got it. Any last thing you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I just think it's fun. You know, I mean, vegan is like not. It's not a religion. It's not like an end thing. It's just a philosophy of life. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So these days, more than anything, vegan is just a lifestyle choice. So I'm really happy that the more people take that choice.
Yeah.
Just for the planet and the animals.
Exactly. And themselves, because
as well. It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's can be delicious, and most of the time it's healthier than not. If you're not only eating Oreos that are not from Japan because they're not vegan.
But like basically it's just like there's no really downsides to it. Like once you set it out, you sort it out how to do it.
Yeah.
There's no basic downside.
I don't see any either.
I can't see any downside. So why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Just have to give it a try. You know?
Yeah, give it a try, definitely. And you don't have to be perfect about it. Just
no. Just do your best.
Even like a few times, it's better than none. So, all right, awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Maybe and some for future second time for even more stories. But I look forward to the next events, meetups, and all. And I'll let you go now. All right, thank you. Bye. Thank you for listening to the ciplantgo podcast. Ciplantgo is also on Instagram and Facebook at CIPLANTGO. There you can have a look at the latest things going on in my plant-based life in Japan. There is also an email address, ciplantgo@gmail.com. Feel free to send me a message, whether it's to ask a question, give me suggestions for ciplantgo, or anything else. Have a great rest of the day, and until next time.